Okay. So, my name's Wendy Sherwood. I am a celebrant. I do weddings, I do funerals. I can do any ceremony, so a baby naming, which some people would call a christening, but because it's not religious, it's a baby naming. I've done weddings. I love a wedding, but I prefer funerals. There are lots of wedding celebrants in Spain, really good wedding celebrants, but I prefer funerals. I always say I'm better with the dead than I am with the living. And that's because I've had quite a few funerals in my family. But also, I think it's really important that you have a really good funeral, a really good send off, and you have the best death possible, which I will come into. So I want to give you a little bit of background on me as to why I came into being a funeral celebrant. My mother died in 2005 of cancer. And because we knew she was dying, we had time to plan her funeral. So she chose the vicar that she wanted to do her funeral. It was a family friend, and she had known this vicar for many years. She chose one piece of music and said the rest of it's up to you. So we did the funeral, and I spent a good 2 or 3 hours chatting with the vicar. And then when I went to the funeral, I thought I'd gone to the wrong one because I did not recognize anything that she was saying. And so I never said anything at the time, and I never said anything to my dad or my brother because they were like, "Oh, that was really good, wasn't it?" So I was like, "Yeah, yeah, it was really good." And afterwards I thought, "No, it wasn't actually. It was really bad." So I thought I could do better than that. And then I parked it. And then I got back from Spain after a really stressful time in work and put my phone back on to have a phone call from the police saying that they needed to speak to me because a relative had died. And it was my cousin, um, my mum's sister's son, and he'd died on his own alone at home. And he was late 30s, early 40s. I didn't really know him. I knew his name. I knew nothing about him. So Graham and I drove over there and we arranged his funeral with a celebrant, and it was quite a good funeral. And I thought, well, that's a lot better than what Mum had. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. So then I again parked it because I was busy at work. And then I got made redundant. They had a massive global restructure of my firm. I worked in law. And I decided I wouldn't reapply for my job because they wanted me to take a massive pay cut. So I retrained as a celebrant. As a wedding celebrant, I did the 2 courses and my firm paid for it for me. So that was quite good. And then I came to Spain and I did a couple of weddings, and then I needed to lose weight, and I met Sandy and said, right, hypnotherapy, here we go. And while I was learning hypnotherapy, because it was so good and I lost my weight, I said to Sandy, this would be really good for grief and bereavement. And she said, yes, it would, but I'm not going to do that. So I said, well, do you know what? I'm going to train. So I did. And so now I use that to help people as well. And I also looked into healthcare around Spain for the terminally ill. And there aren't many hospices. In fact, the lady who owned the house that I just bought, I knew her, Carol, and she had cancer. And she had a visit from the, how would you say, the terminal team, let's say, let's call it the terminal team. I don't know what they call it in Spain. We would call it from the, the Macmillan, the End of Life service in the UK, but it's the terminal team here. One doctor, 2 paramedics. The next visit will be in 10 to 12 weeks. Well, she was dead by the time her next visit was due to be. So there's not the weekly regular visit from people who knew all about cancer and end of life and things like that. So today I'm going to talk to you about what a celebrant does and also a couple of other things. So a celebrant, I'm an independent celebrant. I'm not a humanist. A humanist is someone that will do a ceremony that has absolutely no religious connotation at all. So no music, no poems, no prayers, no nothing that has anything to do with religion, which is fine. And that's what some people want. But I'm an independent celebrant, so you can have what you want with me. So if Aunt Sally is really religious, we can say the Lord's Prayer at the end just to cover off Aunt Sally. If you want a religious poem, I can suggest them. I will read whatever you want. What I won't do is things like the Irish Our Father, because that's very religious, but also you have to get the intonation. Everything has to be right. And when you're doing the funeral, it's your last goodbye. And so it's got to be right for you. And I'm not going to do anything that I might muck up. So I stick to what I know, and I'll read the Lord's Prayer. And if someone's written another prayer and I think, yeah, I can read that, no problem, I'll read it to them and see what they think. And then if they're happy with it, I'll read it on the day. So a funeral celebrant will, first of all, arrange a meeting or a phone call, depending how far away you are. They will sit down with a questionnaire and talk to you about the person that's died. Now, quite often, it's not always someone who was dearly loved. There may have been conflict in the family. They may have been, to be perfectly honest, hated. And so you have to write the funeral according to the person's wishes. Now, there will be one person that I, as the celebrant, will deal with, and I take my instructions from them. And what I say to them is, talk to the rest of the family, get their ideas, get their stories, ask them if there's anything they want to say. And if someone comes back with a load of expletives and really didn't like the person at all, but puts it in no uncertain terms, then I will try and find a way to put that, but in language that I can read, perhaps in a church, because a lot of funerals, although they're not religious, will take place in a chapel or in a church. And there will be people working there that are religious. And so I'm not going to say things that really might offend them and then stop us using that facility again. So you do have to be a bit careful with what you say. So I ask them all the questions and I take that away. I will guide them through the process of what happens. And on the day, I will arrive early, ensure that everything is as it should be, ensure that the casket is in place, that it's central, that it doesn't look too clinical. And if it's on the trolley and it hasn't got a skirt around it, I'll ask, have you got a skirt that we can put round? It's about creating a pleasant space, a safe space for people to say their goodbyes, to be as they want it to be, and make it as best as we can for them. I've done large funerals for 50 plus with people standing. They've been filmed. I take speakers with me. I have microphones with me because I never know, if I've not been there before, what I'm going to face. I always put the music on my phone, and I always have a speaker that I can play that through, because when you go to a little church in the middle of nowhere, they may not have these facilities. So what do you do when someone dies? And I always think of someone dying at home. It's different if you die in a hospice or if you die in a hospital. But if someone dies at home in Spain, what do you do? And if you go back to the UK, what do you do in the UK, in France, Belgium, anywhere? And I always say to people, particularly in Spain, do nothing. Get yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, large glass of wine, gin and tonic, or that large scotch, whatever you like, and take some time to sit with them. You might have things that you never told them, and now that they're dead, you can say them to them. So take that time to sit there with them and say what you need to say. Close their eyes if you can. If their eyes aren't closed, close their eyes and just make them comfortable. Put the blankets around them, tidy them up. If it's hot, put the aircon on full to keep them cool, and then just sit there. Particularly if it's the middle of the night, and most people that die tend to die early hours of the morning, between 2 and 4. So there's no rush to call someone, because in Spain, once you call someone, that ball starts rolling and it very soon picks up speed. And so you need to be prepared for that. A funeral can happen the same day. I've had a call at midday to do a funeral at 6 o'clock the same day. I did it, but it was very rushed, and it wasn't the way I would like to have done it. In the UK, we get weeks. Now, when someone does die in Spain, before they take the loved one away, they will want identification and they will want to know who's paying. And until they have a credit card, they're not going to take that body. So be prepared. So that's why a lot of people have funeral plans. Now, there's lots of funeral plans out there, and Ali and I were talking about this earlier on. Some are registered and are what I would say are pucker plans, and some are not. And one did go down recently, and people lost a lot of money. Lawyers are involved and they are looking into it. So I would say, if you're going to get a funeral plan, do your research. And if you're not going to get a funeral plan, have money put aside in an account that people, your family, your friends know where it is to pay for your funeral. So you'll need ID, a passport and/or residency card, but a passport is preferable, and a credit card or a funeral plan. Now, if you don't have a funeral plan and you don't have that little card that they give you with all the details of that plan in your wallet, and you go on holiday to Barcelona and Wendy's having a nice old gin and tonic close to the Sagrada Familia, and she keels over and drops down dead. So the first thing they'll do is they'll call the police, and the police will call the nearest funeral director. And that is where the funeral will happen, unless you have a plan in place that says, we know Wendy wants to be buried in La Esperanza in Vélez, Malaga. We're going to remove her body and take her there. So you need to think about this, because your loved one is going to be in a hotel. How are your friends going to get there? What sort of funeral will it be if you're on holiday and you die? A lot of funeral plans now will cover you if you go back to the UK. So if you get to your 80s and you think, you know what, I want to go back to the UK and be close to my children, that funeral plan will cover you for your funeral in the UK. So once you've had your conversation, you've drunk your glass of wine, the first thing you do is you call the police, you call your doctor or the person's doctor, and you call the 24-hour number for the crematoria, and they will all come out. You need the doctor to sign off that the person is dead. The police need to be called to make sure there's no dodgy business. And obviously, you want the funeral director to come and take your loved one away. And as I say, once they do that, it's normally in Spain 24 to 48 hours before and then the funeral will take place. Now, some of them I know will, like La Esperanza, they own their property, they own their cold storage, they won't charge you extra if you need to wait 4 or 5 days for people to come from the UK. Others will charge you €100 a day for storage, and that can very quickly mount up. So you need to be aware. I also, some people call it a doula, some people call it a soul midwife, some people call it auntie. Now, when I started doing this, a good friend of mine said to me, "Oh, you're like the goddess of death, you are." I was at a photo shoot in a long black dress and I had an urn and I was on a boat. We were doing a photo shoot for a funeral at sea. And that she said to me, "Hold the urn." And I did it. And I was very upright. And she went, "Oh, the goddess of death." So that was it. That's now my nickname. She calls me the goddess of death. Other people call me Auntie Wendy. So I answer to anything polite, really. You don't need training to be a doula, but it is a good idea. And I've virtually finished mine. And that's where I say I believe everyone should have the best death possible. When people are dying, whether they're religious or not, they suddenly start thinking, "Oh, what have I done? You know, do I need to think about this? What do I need to do?" So when people die, it's not like on the telly. There's no dramatic heaving and throwing yourselves about. It's normally a very shallow intake of breath, and that's it. They're gone. No dramatic car chases, no dramatic scenes. It's very quiet. And I will tell you a funny story because my dad was very much the practical joker, and he died 2 years ago in hospital. And his breathing was quite laboured, and all of a sudden it stopped. And my brother looked at me from the other side of the bed and said, "Has he gone?" And I said to him, "I think so." And as I said it, my dad went and tried to sit up. And my brother looked at me and went, "Oh," because that would have been the sort of thing he did. And then when he took his next deep breath, I started to time it with the clock that was above his bed. And when my brother asked me, I said, "He hasn't taken a breath for 11 minutes, Pete. I think he's gone." And that was it. And we called the nurses and the doctors and everyone came. But you wouldn't notice it sometimes unless you're looking for it. So as someone that might sit with someone as a soul midwife, an auntie, they were called aunties in the old days because they were sent to get the village auntie who helped everyone at that time. You're their ally. You're there to have their back. So there might be family feuds. So you'll be there to arbitrate, be the in-between, get them to talk to one another. I'm there to provide a safe space for them to scream and shout and say, "Why me? It's not fair." And it's not. But there's only 2 guarantees in life. 1, we're all going to die. 2, we've all got to pay tax. And that's it. Nothing else is guaranteed. I'm there to support them with practical things, paperwork, Talk to them about the dying process, what they might experience, how they might feel. Talk to them about their wishes for their funeral. What do they want? How do they want to be remembered? What do they want me to say? Perhaps going shopping for them for gifts for families, helping them to write letters if they can't write. Creating rituals for them, burning sage, burning oils for them, giving them a very light massage, holding their hands, and discussing spiritual beliefs, maybe even religious beliefs. Whatever they want, that's what I'm there to help them with. And I'm also there to support the family and help them to better understand what that family member wants. Because the family may have this idea of a big funeral, big church, big this, big that. But the person dying might think, I don't want all that. I want an eco funeral, or I just want to be cremated and my ashes scattered in the mountains or scattered at sea. So it's about facilitating that person to have the best death possible and to support the family, to support them and their wishes. So what I want to ask you now, I'm just going to put some pictures up. So this is what I do. Weddings on a boat, weddings in a beautiful old house, in the gardens, funeral in a church. This is the funeral on the boat. And this was my dad. My dad's in that box, and that's his cap. And that's the pashmina or shawl that I would normally wear over one shoulder with a big silver brooch. Now, the reason Dad's in a box and not in a casket is that when he died on the 26th of February, and we couldn't get a cremation with a service until the end of March. And I couldn't wait in the UK all that time. So we sent him straight to cremation. My brother picked him up, and then we did a memorial service in London and then a memorial service in St Neots for all his other friends. So I'm going to come to questions in a minute, but I want to talk to you about, are you prepared for your end? None of us like talking about dying, but it's really important that we do, because you don't want to leave a complete and utter mess for family or a friend that's going to have to deal with your estate when you pass. So what will happen? Do you have a funeral plan? If you don't, do you want a funeral plan? If not, like I said earlier, put some money aside. If you've got a funeral plan, where are the details? Who's it with? Who's going to do the service? What do you want? If you don't have a funeral plan that will incorporate all that, write your wishes down, put them in your wallet, and then if you do go to Barcelona and have an unforeseen accident, people will know where you want to go and what you want. Think about things like social media. Most of the people watching this will have a business, so they'll be on social media. You might only be on Facebook or Instagram, but you might be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, Rumble, Getter, and the other myriad of social medias. So, do you have a legacy contact on each account? Most people will say, no, I don't. What's a legacy contact? A legacy contact is someone that you can put in to Facebook, Instagram, wherever, and say, when I die, you can give these people access to my account so they can close it down. Because people like Sandy know me, we're friends, I pop off, she'll keep getting ancient things from Wendy pop up. You might get 6 months down the line, Wendy'd make a good friend to you, because Wendy might not be your friend on Facebook, but Wendy died. And so that can be quite upsetting for some people. So you need to put a legacy contact on all your social media. Now, before you do that, talk to the person, because when you put their name in and you go through, it will send them a text message or an email saying, Wendy's put you down as her legacy contact. And I did that. And my stepson then rang me and said, I think you've been hacked. I've just received this. And it said, when you die. And I said, yes, that was me, Craig. Don't worry. So make sure you speak to them first, because I didn't. And I learned by that mistake. So as a business, do you have accountants? Do you have business partners? What happens to your business when you die? Is it written in its constitution? Does your half of the business go to the other business partner, or is it distributed to family? Does your business partner know that your part will go to family? You need to take all that into consideration. Jewelry. Who's going to get your jewelry? Take photographs of it. If you can, get those, they used to be called Kodak instant cameras. I think you can still get them. Take the photograph of the jewelry on a black background, and on the bottom of the photograph, write the name of the person who you want it to go to and the date you took the photograph. And if you've got a picture of you wearing it, all the better, because the tax man will want to know that it is something you've passed down. Pets. If you have dogs, cats, who's going to look after your pet if you're the last person in that household? Don't just say, oh, Wendy's going to look after my cat, because Wendy's allergic to cats and they make her itch. So Wendy won't be looking after your cat. So think about who you are going to give your pets to. If you have a will, you can put all this information with your will. Please, please do not paperclip, bulldog clip, attach anything to your will, because it can make it invalid. If you've paperclipped something and there is a mark, the lawyer will say something has been removed from this will, and that can make it null and void. And if someone contests your will, that can literally be the tipping point. So think about it. And then you've got your property, your car. In Spain, you need to put everything down. So make sure you talk about who you want to have your car, who you're going to give your house to. And now we come on to advanced directives. Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer are becoming more prevalent in society today. So you can get durable medical powers of attorney, and this allows someone to advocate for you. So an advanced healthcare directive, if you have an illness, you can state how you want to be treated. So the person who holds that, if you have a car crash and you are put on life support, do you want to be on life support? Or do you want them to pull the plug? How long do you want to be on life support before you say, no, enough's enough now? A living will is something that is your wishes. You can advocate for yourself. And that's normally combined with the advanced healthcare directives. There's also a psychiatric advanced directive for mental health care. And this is good for people with schizophrenia and really severe mental health issues. Now, advanced healthcare directives in Spain, the Junta de Andalucía have a comprehensive guide regarding healthcare directives, which covers but isn't limited to a living will, blood transfusions, nutrition, hydration, and CPR, which is what you see on the telly where they're pumping your chest and you dramatically come back to life. They've not had, I have to say, they've not had much impact in Spain. And that's due to lack of training of healthcare professionals. There's been no public process to increase awareness about them, and therefore not many people really know about them. The bureaucratic procedure is, let's just say, it's very typical of Spain. And the remnants of a paternalistic medical culture make decision making difficult. But that said, if you go down this route day by day, they are getting a little bit better. And so it is something to think about. So there's a lot there. So if anyone has any questions, I'm going to stop sharing and I will answer questions. One thing I will say before I take questions is I do have a document. I call it my Completing the End of Life Puzzle document, and I will send a copy or a link to Ali and she can put it in the group, and then people can fill that in. But it just lists a lot more than I've gone through to say, have you thought about this? Bank accounts, premium bonds, so many things that people, stocks and shares, financial advisor, lawyers, so much that people don't think about. And then when your children are going through your papers from 500 years ago, because let's face it, we all keep everything, and they're going, oh my God, this goes back to 1945. Where's last month's bank statements? You know, oh, we don't know, because they're all over the place in shoe boxes and in suitcases and under the bed, and you know, so you've got to think about these things. Don't leave your children a mess. Please think about it. So questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Wendy. Do unmute yourself, ladies, and ask a question. I know when my mum had her funeral in the UK, they had a man stand up. Patrick, my husband, actually did the eulogy, but they had another man stand up and he got my dad's name wrong. So you could see all these little old ladies thinking, she was married twice. My sister and I knew that my mum would have found that hysterically funny. So, you know, we were fine about it. But yeah, the guy was mortified when we saw him at the grave. He really apologized for getting my dad's name wrong, but it's too late by then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, Wendy helped me a lot. When Stuart's mum died last year, didn't die here, she was in the UK, but we didn't know what to do. And my first point of call was Wendy. But I remembered that I'd heard Wendy do a talk like this a few years ago. And two of the massive details I got was do nothing for at least an hour, just to get your head around stuff. It doesn't matter if you're not sitting next to the body. We just sat with a cup of tea and looked at the lake for an hour. Husband, head, nothing. My head, need to call this person, need to do this, put my zip to my mouth for the hour. Then I called Wendy, can just run out of what to do next. So that was a really good one that I got a lot from. And the other one that was the advocate, the legacy for your social media. My husband was quite annoyed when I said, when we were talking about it a couple of years ago, and my son went, oh, I'm her legacy, I've got all the details. And he was quite annoyed and went, why has he got them and not me? And I said, because he's a lot younger than I am and you're older than I am. And hopefully he'll still be around when I pop off. Wendy also helped me massively with the funeral speech for Stuart's mum. She did the call with us and she asked us the questions, which was stuff we hadn't thought about. And she helped us craft such a wonderful talk. and I delivered it because obviously Wendy was here and we were going to the UK. But it was wonderful, and it was such a privilege to be able to do that. And I loved doing it. I don't want to be a funeral celebrant, Wendy, but I loved doing it, and I loved doing it for my mother-in-law. It became very, very personal for the whole family. So yeah, just to say that Wendy's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Funerals are not for everyone. They're not for everyone because you never know what you're going to get. I've done suicides. I've done a funeral for a 3-year-old child. They're difficult, some of them, and not everyone can cope with that.
And I love what you've done by putting all of this end of life packaged literally together.
Yeah.
When people know that they're going to pass and they're in the last month or two of their life, I think it's awesome because you've got the patience and the presence to sit with them and say, what do you want? And actually make get to know them and make all of the plans for them. And then you've got the thing that you can help the family with around the coming to terms with and everything else. So I think that what you do is probably more extra special than any other kind of funeral celebrant because you've got the whole package going on.
Yeah. And lots of people don't understand. The body knows what to do when it's dying, and you stop eating and then you stop drinking, and people have very much got to keep them alive. So, eat something, drink something. If they don't want to eat and they don't want to drink, don't force it. The body knows. And it's not fair to try and keep on. Just go with it and let them have a good death and not you constant prodding and poking.
Yeah, the other thing that I think you actually did answer, I wrote a question down as you were talking, but I think you actually covered it because obviously out here, everything does happen super quick.
Yeah.
And I think you sort of covered it with your dad when you said, you decided to say, okay, let's have an unattended, let's just do that. And then go on and have a service later on when family and friends can be there and do stuff. So that was what my question was when going, you answered that.
Yeah, you can do a memorial service anywhere you want in your own garden. I mean, my dad, we didn't bury him. I scattered his ashes in St. Neots in the garden of one of his really good friends. And everyone was there. It was right on the river. So some of it went on the grass, some of it went into the river. And then 3 weeks later, the friend died. And it was like they'd kept one another going. And so that was quite sad. But yeah, it happens. It happens.
And the bank account, because if you've got a joint bank account, do the bank freeze it when the person dies? No.
No.
Okay.
No. It's always good to have, if you can, a joint bank account, even if it's just for the funeral or for rainy day money. And then when one of you goes, then you've got that money. But if you're the last one, in the UK, you pay for the funeral or you arrange the funeral, get the invoice, take it to the bank, they'll pay it for you. So that's normally okay. In Spain, it can take a little bit longer to get the money, but you will get the money eventually.
Right. Yeah.
They don't always freeze the account. It depends on how much money's in there and also the circumstances. If someone's been ill with cancer and the doctor says, oh yeah, Wendy's been ill with cancer for 6 years, so it was a dot on the card she was going to die at some point from it, so yeah, I'll just sign it. Then normally it goes through pretty quickly. And the Spanish are pretty quick at taking their tax money and taking things that they want. So it won't take them long.
Yeah.
As we all know.
Yeah. How long is it for the sorry, Emma, were you going to ask a question?
I was sorry, you go first.
No, I was just going to say, how long is it for the capital gains tax? How long is it that you have? Mind you, in Andalusia, it's 1 million, isn't it? So
yeah, and capital gains and inheritance is different everywhere in every part of Spain.
Right.
So you would need to look at where you are. You know, obviously Andalusia is one thing, but then you go somewhere else and it's completely different.
Yeah.
In Andalusia, inheritance tax, I think, is 1% over $1 million.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, well, at the moment, I think it's 40%. But if Rachel from accounts gets her way, it'll be going up a lot more. So if you've got money in the UK, get it out quick.
Yeah. Emma, sorry, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, and I don't know if it's something you deal with or not, but I was just thinking, if we didn't say we were away somewhere the other side of the world, have you ever dealt with that kind of situation, or
I haven't.
repatriating someone's body? I imagine that's very expensive. All
Right,
those
it's
kinds of things.
extremely expensive, extremely. That's why you always have holiday insurance. If you're going away, particularly if you're going to America, make sure you've got repatriation and you've got sufficient health care. I know holiday insurance can be expensive, but pay it. It's worth it. To repatriate, the last time I looked at this, to repatriate a body from where I am in Canis d'Acetuno to the UK was just over €10,000
Oh, wow.
to repatriate a body.
So, you know,
There's
these funeral plans, sorry, Wendy, but that funeral plan where they say, oh yeah, if you want to be buried in the UK, we'll sort that out. They don't obviously sort out the flight going back over then.
No. That's if you are in the UK and you die, they will pay for the funeral in the UK.
But what I mean is, like, you know, if on your, say if you've got it out here,
Yeah,
and you say, well, I want to be buried in Spain, that's on my wish list.
yeah,
But then you're in England and you die,
yeah.
they won't fly you back to Spain to follow your wish list. So that's a wee bit misleading of the people I've been talking to about a funeral plan then.
Yeah, there's two, there's two different, there's normally 3 plans. So you get the cremation plan, which is the cheapest. So you get the cremation. So you don't get embalming or anything like that. And normally in Spain, to be honest, they don't do that unless you specifically ask for it. And then obviously it costs. So you get the straight to cremation, no ceremony, no nothing, just straight to cremation. And then you get the cremation or the little niche in the wall. They don't tend to bury in the ground here, and I can understand why, because it's all mountains and rock. So you're all in the little niche in the wall. And that's very much like a grave in the UK. You rent that space for, say, 30 years. And then at the end of that time, if you don't renew it, you're removed, put in a different grave, and then someone else will take your slot. Exactly the same in the UK. You know, after so many years, if you don't renew that grave, then you're taken out, you're put in a communal grave, and they will use that grave for someone else.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
You know, you walk around a graveyard to see
Yeah.
headstones that are hundreds of years old.
Yeah, people have paid for that, though. People keep it going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what's the third one, Wendy?
So the third one then is repatriation. So if you're living in Spain and you know that you want to be buried with your mum and dad, say, then they will repatriate your body to the UK. But as I said, the last time I looked at that, it was over €10,000, and that was maybe 4 years ago. So I don't know how much that's gone up to. And that was only with one funeral provider, one funeral plan. So it's they will pay for you to be buried, to have a funeral in England if you go there. If I got to 80 and decided, oh, do you know what, I'm going to go and live in the UK, my grandson will look after me and I'll live out my days there. I'll pop my clogs, they'll pay for my funeral. But they won't pay to have your body repatriated and buried under the olive tree here, no. It's too expensive. And moving a body, you know, in the UK, every county you cross, you have to have a license to bring the body into that county. It's not an easy thing. You can't just chuck the body in a plane and go, yeah, you know, Smith and Co will pick it up, and you've got to have paperwork, you've got to have licenses. There's a lot involved. And when you have, as an expat, whether you're French, Belgian, German, when you're cremated here and you pick up the ashes, normally 2 or 3 days later, or they'll deliver them to you, you get all the paperwork with it. You'll get the death certificate, and you will get the certificate license that you need to take those ashes back to the UK or Germany or France, so that you can travel with that. And I do say to people, please don't put them in your suitcase, because if your suitcase goes missing, so does Granddad, and it's not nice. So sit Granddad in your duty-free bag on your lap or in your backpack under the seat, and don't leave him on the plane.
I had visions then of anybody see that video of the luggage handlers chucking like bags on recently. I had visions of Grandad going being scattered at the airport.
Nice. It's not nice. So, you know, get your little urn, and they come. I mean, they come in a beautiful. I mean, I've seen the one from Esperanza. They come in a lovely urn, and then you can get a nice little padded bag with a little zip top, and you can carry them in it. So you can put it in your bag, and look, it's ash. It hasn't got disease. It's ash. It's been burnt at 800-900 degrees. There is nothing in there. You can't catch anything. Then it can't do you any harm. So, you know, but people don't, it's a dead body, and people don't like that. So just put it in the little bag. It looks like a cool bag, and just in another carrier bag. Don't put, you know, with L'Esperanza Funeral Home on it, because people will know what it is, and then they'll think, oh, your granddad, yeah. Do you know what I mean? When you're on the plane with your bacon butty, and you think, oh, does Granddad want a bit? He'd love a bacon butty, but unfortunately.
Drop one in for him.
Drop one in, yeah. Drop one in.
Sandy, I think you're talking about the policy which is quite often promoted, where they say that you can get buried in Spain, but if you move back to the UK, then the policy still is available for
It's valid,
you.
and now possibly I'll have to have a look into it. Wendy, I've got to go because it's almost call mummy time.
Okay, lovely. No problem.
But
No
thank
problem.
you. It's been really interesting yet again. And you know, thank you for everything you do. It's wonderful.
You're welcome. And any questions, message me if anyone's got any questions. And anyone watching this afterwards, if you've got any questions, just send me a DM, and I'm going to send that end of life puzzle document to Ali, and she can put it where everyone can find it.
Right, I'm going to go, but they might still have questions. So thank you, ladies.
I need to go as well. Sorry. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been great to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Let me stop.